ever secretly suspected that if your job just vanished tomorrow, the world wouldn't change at all?
Or that it might actually get, a little bit better.
Right. I mean, it is an incredibly uncomfortable question to ask yourself. But if you have ever sat at your desk just staring at a screen, wondering what the actual point of your daily grind is, I need you to know that you are not crazy.
No, not at all.
You are definitely not alone.
Far from it, actually. We are looking at this massive structural reality of the modern economy that almost nobody wants to talk about out loud. Like, it's a phenomenon that completely contradicts the whole core narrative of modern capitalism.
Yeah. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore this exact phenomenon. So we're looking at the concept of the bullshit job. And I want to be really clear right up front, here we are not talking about bad jobs.
Right. Totally different thing.
Exactly. We are not talking about ditch digging or cleaning toilets or working a grueling shift in a warehouse, because those jobs might be physically exhausting and they might be, frankly, severely underpaid, but they are necessary. Like, society actively relies on them to function.
Yeah, we are talking about pointless jobs.
Pointless jobs.
Positions where the person doing the work secretly believes that if their role simply ceased to exist, nothing of value would be lost. The work is entirely devoid of meaning. And often, the employee spends their entire week just pretending otherwise.
Which brings me to one of the most hilarious and honestly shocking case studies we uncovered in the sources. It's about a Spanish civil servant named Joaquin Garcia.
Well, this story is amazing.
It's wild. So he was an engineer working for a municipal water board in Cadiz. And eventually his managers, who apparently didn't care for his political leanings, right, they just stopped assigning him any responsibilities.
Throws him out.
Yeah. They gave him an office and literally 0 tasks. So what did Joaquin do? He just stopped going to work.
He just stayed home.
For 6 years. He stayed home, he collected his full salary, and he dedicated his life to becoming a leading expert on the 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza.
I mean, it's the ultimate fantasy for a lot of burned out office workers, right? But the truly incredible part of Joaquin's story isn't even that he stayed home to read philosophy. It's that nobody in this massive bureaucratic organization even noticed his absence.
Not a single person.
Yeah.
Like, the city only realized he was missing in 2010, and the only reason they figured it out was because he was due to receive a medal for long and dedicated service.
I can't make this up.
The deputy mayor literally went to pin a medal on his chest, asked where he was, and discovered Joaquin hadn't set foot in the building since 2004.
God, it sounds like an absurdist comic, like a modern-day Kafka novel or something.
Yeah.
But it points to a staggering statistical reality. Because when polling agencies like YouGov started testing this hypothesis, asking workers directly if their jobs made any meaningful contribution to the world, the numbers were terrifying.
They really were.
In the UK, 37% of workers surveyed were entirely sure their jobs were pointless.
Yeah.
And a similar poll in Holland found that 40% of workers felt the exact same way.
Okay, let's unpack this, because nearly half the workforce is an unfathomable number of people.
It really is.
I mean, imagine walking into a massive, sprawling factory. You look around, and half the machines on the floor are designed solely to consume electricity and make a loud humming noise. They produce absolutely nothing.
Just vibrating and eating up resources.
Right. They just sit there. And that seems to be a huge chunk of our modern service economy.
Which entirely defies everything economists teach us about the efficiency of free markets, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, a profit-seeking firm is mathematically modeled to be ruthless about costs.
Right. Cut the fat.
Exactly. They are never supposed to shell out salaries, benefits, and office space to workers they don't actually need. Yet, here we are, with millions of people cashing checks for producing nothing of value.
So, if 30% of jobs are entirely pointless, what exactly are all these people doing all day? Because, I mean, they aren't all staying home reading Spinoza.
No.
They're commuting, swiping badges, sitting in cubicles.
Well, they're going to the office, and they're participating in a highly categorized system of make-believe. There is actually a clear typology to this madness, and we break down the different flavors of meaningless work. It becomes, very easy to spot where you or maybe your friends might fit into this ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely.
So let's start with the roles built entirely around executive ego. Think of the modern corporate equivalent of a feudal lord's entourage.
The flunkies. Like someone whose only job in the Middle Ages was to polish the king's horse armor so the king looked intimidating.
Exactly. And in the modern corporate world, that looks like Jack, the cold caller from the sources. So Jack worked at a brokerage firm, but his actual purpose had nothing to do with generating leads. His primary function was to make a mid-level broker look like a big shot, simply because he had his own assistant. I mean, Jack got paid $200 a week out of the broker's own wallet just to sit there as a status symbol.
A human totem pole.
Yeah, just to impress clients and intimidate rival brokers.
That is insane. But executive ego is just one piece of the puzzle, right? What about the roles that are driven purely by corporate arms races? Like the aggressive jobs that only exist because the company across the street hired someone to do the exact same thing.
Right, that drops us into the realm of the goons. So if a country only needs a standing army, because neighboring countries have standing armies, the corporate equivalent would be telemarketers, certain corporate lobbyists, or attack dog PR specialists.
The detail that really stuck with me for Goons is Tom, a visual effects artist. So Tom makes £100,000 a year. When he's making dinosaurs attack spaceships for blockbuster movies, he feels great about his work. It's entertainment, people love it.
That's right.
But a huge chunk of his job involves working on TV commercials. Specifically, airbrushing pores out of the faces of actors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he manipulates human features to make them literally flawless and alien. Like, his job is to systematically manufacture consumer insecurity, making people feel physically inadequate so they rush out and buy products to fix a problem that Tom basically invented in a post-production editing suite.
It's an industry built on creating a deficit and then selling the cure.
Exactly.
But moving from external manipulation, we also have internal organizational failures. Think about what happens when a company's core process is fundamentally broken, but management just, refuses to admit it or fix the root cause.
They just hire someone to manage the bleeding. Duct tapers.
The duct tapers.
It is like putting a bucket under a leaky roof in your living room, and instead of just calling a roofer to fix the hole, you hire a guy full-time to stand there and empty the bucket every hour.
It is the ultimate triumph of treating the symptom instead of the disease. Take the case of a programmer hired by a company run by this prominent Viennese psychologist. So this psychologist built his entire reputation on claiming he had invented a revolutionary, genius-level algorithm for reproducing human speech.
But the algorithm was total garbage, right? Like, it couldn't even process basic syntax or hold a simple conversation.
Right, which creates a massive crisis of ego for the founder. So instead of admitting the core technology was flawed and starting over, the company forced this programmer to secretly write fake, primitive scripts.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was building parlor tricks behind the scenes to cover up the fact that the boss's genius algorithm didn't actually work. The programmer wasn't building software, he was acting as a human roll of duct tape to protect an executive's fragile reputation.
That covers technical incompetence perfectly. But what about moral incompetence? Like the people hired just so an organization can point to a piece of paper and claim they are doing something that, in reality, they absolutely are not doing.
The compliance industrial complex. The box tickers. It is the substitution of a paper trail for actual care or action. Look at Betsy, who worked in a care home for the elderly. Her primary job was to sit down with new residents and fill out this massive, highly detailed questionnaire about their leisure preferences.
Like what music they liked, did they enjoy painting, that kind of thing.
Exactly. What were their favorite hobbies?
And she would gather all this deeply personal, humanizing information and put it in a heavy binder that no one would ever open again.
Literally never.
She literally threw mountains of these preference forms into the shredder when short-term residents left. The facility didn't care about the residents' actual preferences. They just cared that they had a fully signed piece of paper proving to inspectors that they had asked about their preferences.
Right. And who oversees all these funkies, goons, duct tapers, and box tickers?
The empire builders, the taskmasters.
Yeah, some taskmasters just assign work to people who are perfectly capable of managing themselves. But the more insidious flavor is the taskmaster who actively creates new, meaningless jobs just to expand their own corporate footprint.
Like Chloe, right.
Yeah.
The academic dean at a prominent university. She was hired into this very impressive-sounding strategic leadership role. But after a few weeks, she realized it was basically a phantom position.
A ghost job.
Yeah, she had no actual budget to manage, no authority over any buildings, no real power to change university policy.
So how does a large bureaucracy compensate an executive when it can't give them actual power?
It gives them headcount.
It gives them headcount.
They give her a personal assistant, a policy support officer, and a full-time postdoctoral research fellow. Chloe openly admitted that she spent 2 years of her life just making up entirely pointless work for herself and her staff to do.
Just spinning plates.
Exactly, creating a confetti of meaningless paperwork because having a large team under you is like the ultimate badge of corporate importance.
when you lay out these categories, it creates a terrifyingly comprehensive map of the modern corporate landscape.
It really does. But I have to push back here, or at least challenge the parameters of the definition. If we are defining these jobs by their negative impact on society or the fact that they shouldn't exist, what about a mafia hitman? By this logic, does a mafia hitman have a bullshit job?
Oh, that is a crucial philosophical distinction. So, a mafia hitman absolutely has a bad job. It is a job that introduces active harm and violence into society. But it is not a bullshit job.
Wait, why not? I mean, the hitman is definitely not contributing to human flourishing.
Because there is absolutely no pretense involved in being a hitman. A mafia enforcer doesn't pretend his job is beneficial to the community.
Fair point.
He doesn't sit in cross-departmental synergy meetings discussing how his kneecapping optimizes local commerce,
Yeah, no slide decks for the mob.
Right. A true bullshit job requires a fundamental gap between pretense and reality. You have to pretend your job matters. You have to put on the suit, use the corporate jargon, and play along with the charade, even when deep in your bones, that it is entirely hollow.
And that brings up a massive paradox for me. Let's look at classical economic theory. The entire foundation of our modern economic system is built on this concept of homo economicus, the perfectly rational, calculating human being. This theory dictates that humans inherently seek to minimize their effort while maximizing their reward. We are supposed to be naturally lazy, profit-seeking machines.
According to that dominant economic framework, getting paid a full, comfortable salary to sit in an air-conditioned room and do absolutely nothing should be the ultimate human dream. You have maximized reward and minimized effort to zero.
Exactly. We should be thrilled. We should be popping champagne. So why are all these people we've been talking about so utterly, devastatingly miserable?
Because classical economic theory has a massive, glaring blind spot when it comes to human motivation. It assumes we only care about consumption, but it completely ignores the severe psychological toll of meaningless work. To understand this, we have to look at the spiritual violence of doing nothing.
And we see this so clearly in the story of Eric. So Eric was a working-class history grad who managed to land a corporate job at a large design firm as an interface administrator.
A title that sounds perfectly legitimate on a resume.
It really does. But reality set in on day one. Eric quickly realized the firm's partners had bought a cheap, buggy, totally broken intranet system. The staff hated it. They were paranoid. The software was tracking their keystrokes, so literally nobody used it.
Nobody.
And because Eric wasn't actually a software engineer, he didn't have the coding skills to fix it. He found himself sitting at a desk for 40 hours a week with absolutely nothing to do.
So how did he cope with that endless expanse of empty time?
Well, he started reading French novels at his desk. And when that wasn't enough, he started drinking at lunchtime. He even went so far as to invent fake business trips just to escape the office.
Fake business trips?
Yes. He would get the company to pay for him to go to a golf course, where he would hack at the turf in borrowed shoes that were 2 sizes too large. He was basically daring them to fire him. But when he finally tried to quit, they offered him a massive raise to stay.
You're kidding?
Nope. The partners just needed him as a human placeholder so they wouldn't have to admit to the board that their intranet project was a total failure.
God, that sounds like the homo economicus jackpot, right? Maximum money, zero effort. So how did this dream job affect Eric's mental health?
It completely broke him. Despite getting paid fantastic money to do whatever he wanted, he eventually suffered a severe emotional breakdown on a train platform. He was just crushed under the sheer, suffocating purposelessness of his own existence.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology behind that breakdown. To understand Eric, we have to look back to a German psychologist named Karl Gruss, who made a vital discovery regarding human development back in 1901. Gruss identified a phenomenon he called the pleasure at being the cause.
The pleasure at being the cause?
Yes. When human infants first realize that they can move a pencil, that their physical action causes a predictable, visible effect in the physical world, they express extraordinary pure joy. It doesn't actually matter what the effect is. The joy comes from the realization of agency.
Wow.
We realize we exist as separate conscious entities precisely because we can impact our environment. Gruss argued this is the absolute foundation of play and really the foundation of human freedom. We know we are alive because we can change things.
So, if you deny a human being that fundamental agency, if you trap them in a cubicle and sever their ability to impact the world,
you cause profound psychological trauma. Psychiatrists actually refer to this as the trauma of failed influence. When you trap someone in a job where they are forced to pretend they're doing something useful, but they know they have absolutely zero impact on the world, you aren't just insulting their intelligence, you are attacking the very foundation of their sense of self. A human being who is systemically blocked from having a meaningful impact on the world effectively ceases to exist.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This modern corporate trauma connects perfectly to an observation made by the writer Fyodor Dostoevsky. So Dostoevsky spent years doing hard labor in a Siberian prison camp.
Right.
And while he was enduring that nightmare, he realized something profound about the nature of torture. He noted that the grueling physical labor the prisoners were forced to do, like cutting timber, making bricks, wasn't actually the worst part of the punishment, because building a wall or digging a functional ditch still had a purpose.
Even in a prison camp, those tasks possessed a basic, undeniable utility.
Right. Dostoevsky realized that if you truly wanted to crush a man, to punish him atrociously and completely break his spirit, you wouldn't just work him to death. You would force him to do work that was completely absurdly useless. You make a prisoner move a heavy pile of dirt from one side of the prison yard to the other, and then immediately make him move it back again.
Just back and forth.
And you make him do that back and forth dance forever. Meaningless work, Dostoevsky realized, is the ultimate weapon. It destroys the soul.
It is a form of acute spiritual violence.
Which begs a massive question. If humans inherently want to do useful things, and we inherently suffer spiritual violence when forced to do pointless things, why on earth are bosses so obsessed with making people look busy? Like, where did this obsession with the phrase, "you're on my time," even come from?
Well, to answer that, we have to look at a massive historical shift in how humanity fundamentally views time. For the vast majority of human history, work wasn't measured by the clock. It was task-based.
Right, like an agricultural society.
Yep.
You work incredibly hard during the harvest season, from sunup to sundown, and then you have winter seasons where you are just mending tools, telling stories, and puttering around.
Historians refer to this natural rhythm as punctuated hysteria. It's bursts of intense, necessary energy followed by long periods of relaxation and recovery. That is how the human animal evolved to operate.
Makes sense.
Furthermore, in the ancient world, the idea of buying someone's time was virtually incomprehensible. An ancient Greek or Roman could understand buying a physical object, like a clay pot. They could even, tragically, understand buying a human being through the institution of slavery. But buying a person's time. Time is a cosmic abstraction. You can't put time in a jar. How do you purchase an abstraction?
So when did we start treating time like a commodity?
Historians actually trace this shift back to the 14th century, heavily driven by merchant guilds building massive clock towers in the center of European towns.
Oh, so everyone could see the time.
Suddenly, time was highly visible and standardized. Then you combine that with the rise of Puritanism, which framed hard work as divine and idleness as a sin, and finally the Industrial Revolution. Time became a fixed, rigid grid. It was chopped up into uniform, billable units, hours, shifts, and eventually the 9-to-5 workday. Time became something that could be bought and sold for cash.
Time literally became money.
And once an employer believes they have purchased your time, a very dangerous new moral logic takes over.
This reminds me of an incredibly relatable anecdote from the sources about teenage dishwashers working in a busy Italian restaurant. So it's a Friday night. The kitchen gets a massive rush of dishes, and the kids decide to be heroes. They work at absolute lightning speed, scrubbing and organizing, completely crushing the massive pile of plates in record time.
Nice.
And then, proud of their efficiency, they lean back against the counter for a second to catch their breath.
A perfectly natural response to completing a task. What happens next?
The restaurant manager walks in and completely loses his mind. He screams, "You're on my time! Get back to work!" The kids are confused, and they point out that there are literally no dishes left to wash. So the boss forces them to get steel wool and scrub the baseboards of the kitchen, which they had already scrubbed earlier that day.
See, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the modern moral logic of employment dictates that idleness is literal theft. If an employer has bought your time and you are not visibly working, you are stealing from them. It doesn't matter if you are highly efficient. It doesn't matter if there is literally nothing of value left to accomplish. You must perform the appearance of labor.
But what does this all mean for you, the listener? Like, are we just conditioning ourselves and our children to accept this completely unnatural state of being? Take the example of Brendan, a college student working a campus job.
Let me guess. A role with vast amounts of downtime.
Oh, absolutely. His job was basically to monitor an entirely empty dining hall room. He could get his actual required tasks done in about 5 minutes. But if a strict old school supervisor was on duty, Brendan couldn't read a book or study. He had to spend his energy looking busy.
Oh, the
He
worst.
found himself wiping tables that were already perfectly clean, just circling the room with a rag. As Brendan pointed out, we are literally using these entry-level jobs to train the next generation. We are actively training young adults to pretend to work under direct supervision rather than teaching them to efficiently accomplish tasks and go live their lives. We are conditioning humans for a lifetime of bullshit jobs.
Which brings us to the ultimate heartbreaking realization of what we as a civilization are collectively losing to this system. Let's look at the macroeconomic math here.
It's sober.
It really is. You take the 37 to 40% of jobs that the workers themselves admit are totally undeniably useless. Then you add in the fact that, according to widespread surveys, workers in useful office jobs still spend about 50% of their time bogged down in administrative nonsense, redundant emails, and wasteful meetings.
The daily duct taping and box ticking that eats up half the week.
Plus, you have to account for the second-order jobs. The armies of office cleaners, night shift security guards, and IT help desk staff whose positions only exist to support the massive office buildings housing all of the fake jobs.
Wow. Yeah.
If you add all of that up, the conclusion is mathematically inescapable. We could easily eliminate half of the work done in our society right now without any negative impact on our standard of living or technological progress.
Which means the famous prediction made by the economist John Maynard Keynes back in 1930 was actually dead on. Keynes predicted that with the rise of robotics and technological advancement, humanity would achieve a 15-hour workweek by the end of the 20th century. We didn't fail to invent the technology. We actually have the technology to do it right now.
We do. The barrier isn't economic or technological, it's moral and political. We have collectively chosen to uphold a system that values the discipline of work for its own sake over human freedom, creativity, and leisure. We'd rather keep people digging holes and filling them back in than figure out how to structure a society with mass leisure time.
And that is exactly why, if you are sitting at a desk right now feeling like your job is an endless, soul-crushing game of make-believe, I want to validate that feeling. You aren't crazy, you aren't lazy for hating the empty hours, you are just trapped in a massive historical glitch. We live in a society that currently values the appearance of labor far more than it values actual, meaningful human contribution.
The spiritual violence you feel when you send another pointless email or fill out another ignored spreadsheet is real. It is the deeply natural human reaction to being denied the pleasure of being the cause.
So let's go back to that massive factory from the beginning of our deep dive. The one where half the machines are just burning electricity, humming loudly, and producing absolutely nothing of value. Imagine if we just reached out and pulled the plug on all those vibrating, pointless machines. If the global economy suddenly stopped demanding that you sell your time just to prove you deserve to exist. If society suddenly gave you back those 27,000 seconds a day that you currently spend staring at a screen waiting for the clock to run out, what is the very first thing you would build, create, or do with your newly reclaimed life?